Welcome to another captivating episode of Raw MOMversations,
where fearless moms and experts unite to explore alternative practices. Hey there, I'm Allie.
And I'm Melania. Our mission is to empower your one-of-a-kind parenting journey. Join us as we explore unconventional birthing and parenting methods.
Get ready for inspiration, authentic stories, and unwavering family love.
Together, we're rewriting our rules of parenting one bold step at a time.
So without further ado, let's kick off this empowering MOMversation.
Raw MOMversations, where fearless motherhood leads the way.
And we're live. No, I'm just kidding. This is pre-recorded, but welcome back to another episode of Raw MOMversations. We have a really cool guest today. Her name is Jessika Fellner. She's a friend of mine and a mom who had two different types of birthing experiences. So the first one was in a hospital, and then the second, she decided to go the route of a birthing center. So welcome, Jessika.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited.
Yeah, it feels like a little mom group meetup for coffee.
You know, it's one thing to, hear about different experiences and stories. And, we just did a home birth podcast last week. But you actually lived through two different experiences. So we definitely want to get your perspective, so to open up some eyes for some other moms who were maybe thinking of doing something other than a hospital.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start with the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Growing both babies.
My first pregnancy?
Yeah, let's do the comparison.
Yeah, sure. So my first pregnancy, basically I didn't go into this thinking like, oh, I want to have a natural birth. I don't want to do an epidural. That always interested me, but it wasn't like, that's the way I'm going to do it. It's actually thanks to Allie that I hired my doula, Chris, who Allie referred. And through the learning process of that, it became more evident that that's what I wanted to do. But in my first pregnancy, I was still followed by a doctor, an OBGYN, and my birth was at the Jewish General Hospital. It was unmedicated, so no epidural, no nothing, but in a hospital setting.
You go, girl.
Yeah. So I guess my pregnancy was the first trimester, like a lot of people, was really crappy and super sick, but then the rest of it was really good, and just followed suit with my doctor kind of. I did turn down the ultrasounds towards the end of the pregnancy just because I wanted to have the least amount of exposure to ultrasounds. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but that was just my choice. And then, I went into
your appointments with your doctor, prior to giving birth. How long were they?
Oh yeah, okay. So the waiting room part was definitely the longest. And then you're basically seen by the doctor for about 5-10 minutes, really. If there's nothing, if you don't have any questions or concerns, which generally I didn't, they just want to look at you, measure your belly, feel around, and then you're good to go. So it was pretty much in and out. Yeah, exactly.
Did you have your doula at the start already when you got pregnant, or how far into your pregnancy did you connect with the doula?
I think I contacted her pretty early in my pregnancy, but we only started the birthing classes. When does it start, Allie? 25, 30 weeks?
Yeah, late second trimester, I think.
Yeah, because they want you to remember everything once you go into birth. So if you do it too early in your pregnancy, you're just going to end up forgetting everything you learned. So I did private one-on-one classes. My husband took part in it. He was really good. And we started that around, I think 25 or 27 weeks. So.
And any of this sort of stuff that you did, it was your doula who recommended it? Did your doctor at any point give you any recommendations? Because, for instance, our doctor recommended a pelvic floor therapist, but did your doctor have any alternative holistic recommendations for you during your pregnancy?
I think I didn't really complain to my doctor about anything. I didn't really have any sort of pregnancy pains or back pain or sciatica or anything. So I didn't really seek out any alternative doctors or whatever. So not really. The meetings were pretty short, and I didn't have that many complications. So Yeah, that was pretty much the doctor's involvement. Just
Your blood work and tests were done at the hospital.
yeah, like the NIPT test, that is
Mm-hmm.
that what it's called? Yeah. That one I did with my doctor. Like they use like an external lab. And then other than that, I don't even know. Is there many tests? It was so
Did you end
different
up
my
doing the
second time.
glucose? Did you end up doing the
Yes.
glucose at the hospital?
My first pregnancy, I did the
Mhm.
glucose test. I went to like one of those places. It was in like Ville Saint Laurent or something.
Okay.
And yeah, I had to drink that disgusting stuff and wait for like 3 hours. And then, yeah.
And then now with your second one, so your first, his
Mhm.
name is Joe. He's
Yeah.
a few weeks older than Isabel. They're so
Yeah.
cute together.
Yeah.
Um, and now your second one is Banks. First of all, what a
Yes.
cool name.
Thank you.
How did you come up with that?
Um, there's a singer called Banks that I always really loved, and my husband and I saw her live like years ago before we were even married, and I was just like felt like it was a cool name. We also love the artist Banksy,
Nice.
and like so when we were talking about like boy or girl names, because my first pregnancy I didn't know the gender.
Mhm.
I think we kind of said it, and then we were like, no, like, can we do that? And we were like, yeah, actually, it's really cool. So that Joe was always our boy name, and Banks was always our girl name. So it was pretty easy when we found out we were having a girl. So
So second time around, you find out you're having a girl. What led you to change your mindset from like a hospital to a birthing center?
So after I gave birth in the hospital, it was an amazing experience. Like I was very lucky. My nurse was so supportive of like no medication, no epidural, because I know oftentimes they'll kind of like roll their eyes like, "Oh yeah, sure, like you're going to be asking for it, you know." But it went
Mhm.
really really well, and I just figured like I don't need a hospital setting. You know, like thank God my pregnancies were really healthy and the babies had no complications. So I figured like if I don't need the epidural, then I could do this anywhere. So, so yeah, I went the midwife route, and yeah, the difference of the care of a midwife and doctor is also really different.
Tell us.
Yeah,
Um,
tell us about it.
okay, so with the midwife, the appointments are a little more like personal. You get an entire hour with the midwife one on one, and they want to know every aspect of your life. So like your relationship, like where you live and the support you're getting during your pregnancy, and what support will you get once you have the baby.
Are
And they
you
really get
serious?
personal. Yeah.
Wow,
And
that's
yeah, and I
crazy.
yeah, they really ask you like personal questions about your partner and like what kind of relationship you're having, and they know that that's all really important when you're pregnant, to not have like those kind of stresses and to make sure your relationships are in a good place. So that's a big difference that I'm sure some doctors maybe are more personal with their patients, but they probably just don't have enough time to be, right? So with the
That's it.
midwife,
Yeah.
you really have a lot of time to talk about everything, like the emotional care and the physical care. So
Which
that's
we
a big difference.
which we spoke about last time, that there's kind of a lack of that emotional
Yeah.
care
Mhm.
through the entire pregnancy.
I mean, we're seen for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, it's not the doctor's fault. I'm sure they would love to
yeah,
sit in there and talk to you for hours on end, but unfortunately, the system just doesn't allow that. And they have a schedule
that's
and
it.
they
Hmm.
literally see two people every 10 minutes. It's crazy. And the
Yeah,
midwives take
exactly.
on 4 births per month.
Yeah, exactly. So you pretty much have a lot of time with them.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
first appointment was 2 hours long.
Oh my God, amazing. Yeah, I think I had that too. But yeah, they just want to like know everything, you know? So it's nice. It feels you feel like you have like a good support system with a midwife.
Was there anything with the midwife, any sort of tests or any appointments that you didn't do that you had done in your first pregnancy?
Yeah, so I didn't do the glucose test this time around, because based on my blood work and the way I was feeling and not having any symptoms, the midwife was just like, it's totally up to you. There's no pressure at all. And she was like, if I felt that you really needed it or that there was some signs that you should do it, then I would have told you, like, that's my recommendation. But they really kind of let you take the lead on your own health and your own pregnancy. and just more like guide you with recommendations, other than, not that any doctor forces, but I think it's pretty uncommon for a doctor to like, you choose, if you do your glucose or not. I don't even think women know that they have the choice to do it or not.
That is,
So
yeah,
yeah, so
100%.
that's,
Women don't know their rights essentially when it comes to
yeah,
giving birth,
exactly. And I also only did the 20-week ultrasound, like the big scan, and then I did no ultrasounds after that.
And all of the appointments, like typically if you have an OBGYN, you have to go externally to do your like blood work,
Yeah.
your glucose test and everything. With the midwife, you can do everything in-house with them.
Yes. So we did, I think we did one blood test around the time before we should have done the glucose test. And based on that blood test, my midwife was like, all your levels look really good. Like there's certain indicators um, that would probably flag them to be like, you should do the glucose, but everything was all clear. So, and I didn't have the diabetes. What's it called again?
The
Gestational diabetes. Yeah. I didn't have it in my first pregnancy. So,
The odds, yeah.
yeah, exactly. It was like a lower chance that I would have it this time.
So coming closer to your birth, did you get a tour of the birthing center? Did you get to choose where you wanted? Like, how did that kind of go about?
Yeah, it's really nice at the Lac St. Louis Birthing Center. It's a small birthing center. There's 4 rooms. One of them has a tub in it. So usually most people pick the room with a tub just to have that option. But the first time I went, they gave me a tour. Sorry.
Hi, Banks.
It's okay. This is real in MOMversation.
Yeah, this is.
Hopefully, Ali will
Alright,
have a great swim point in our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first appointment I went to, they gave me a tour of the rooms. And then closer to my birth, I think like as of the time when you go every week or every second week, I think it's like 32 weeks. We did a tour again and she was like, are these still the rooms you want? And you get to make a first choice and a second choice. It's pretty rare at that birthing center, since they only take 4 patients each a month, that like your room will be full when you come, but you always make a second choice. And when I gave birth, there was actually no one else there. So it was really cool.
Also, from what I've come to understand, because I'm completely unaware of all of this, you have contact with your midwife throughout your pregnancy, correct? More so than you would have had with a doctor?
Yeah, like you
Or
could text your midwife at any time. Like you have like a texting number. So like if you're like, oh, I feel this, like something happened, this feels weird, like you could just text them.
like, so you just felt supported completely throughout?
Yeah, absolutely. And having a doula really helps with that, especially since like I have a good relationship with my doula now, since it was my second time using her. So like between my doula and my midwife, like I had someone to ask any question to.
Okay. And
Yeah.
last question, what made you pick the birthing center versus like with your confidence level of like doing it at home or?
Yeah. Honestly, like home births must be incredible. My house is not like the best set up. There's a lot of like white carpets. Like I think also like psychologically, for me to be like laboring at home for as long as possible, to switch locations, I feel like that was going to help me. And I love the birthing center and like the vibe and the rooms there, that I was just like, I like it here. I want to be here, Like I'm
Yeah.
sure if I didn't like feel good at the birthing center, I would have been like, let's just do it at home. Because like you could do it in any home. It doesn't have to be like that spacious or anything. And they bring all the stuff. Even if you want a tub, they bring an inflatable tub, everything. But I
Yeah.
just liked the birthing center. So
Yeah. Well, we just did an interview, like we mentioned, with a home birth. And
yeah.
then I remember we were talking about it afterwards. And I think a home birth, her story was so beautiful. But I was like, she had her birth in her bed. And I was like,
Oh,
beds, I've learned you shouldn't have a TV in your room. Beds should be associated with sleeping or with not
yeah.
sleeping activities. And I couldn't associate my home with laboring. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I just couldn't do it. Like I need to physically leave. So I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think like for some people, my girlfriend just had a home birth and it was incredible and she loved it. But for me, like knowing that I was like going from one place to the next, like just set me up for like, okay, now I'm in the next stage of labor. Now, like,
Right.
you know, it's going to go down
Did you
here.
labor
Like
for a
it's
long,
ready.
did you labor a long time at home?
Yes. Oh my God. I had like pre-labor for like almost 18 hours, and it was just like a mild contraction every 4 minutes for like 18 hours. So it wasn't hard, but I just couldn't really sleep because it was like annoying, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, that was really long, but my active labor was really, really fast. So
Okay.
Okay, so now let's go back to Joe.
yeah.
The day you delivered. So how was
Yeah.
that experience at the hospital with Joe and
Yeah.
the process there?
So my water broke at 6 a.m. at home, like full movie style, like, you know. So I called the hospital, and I went in right away. When I got to the hospital, I still wasn't even having contractions or anything. But since my water was broken, they want you to come in right
Mhm.
away. So yeah, I got to the hospital around like 10 a.m. It was pretty chill. We got like McDonald's drive-thru on the way. Like we got to take our time. And then around like noon, my contractions started rolling in. It was pretty mild and manageable. And oh my gosh, sorry, I haven't told this birth story for so long that
I
because
know, you
like I just had
forget.
my second. Yeah, it's all a blur. But yeah, I guess I just labored for about the entire labor, including the pushing, was like 7 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, so I think it started to really like ramp up around like 4 p.m. And yeah, I got checked by then, and I was 7 centimeters. So my thing with my birthing plan at the hospital was I didn't want to like look at a clock, and I didn't want to get checked. Like, I didn't want my cervix to get checked because like I knew for me, like if they had checked me and I was laboring for like 4 hours and only dilated like 1 centimeter, it would have been like
Like a mental.
hard. Yeah, it would have been like
Yeah.
mentally like, oh my God, this is long.
And can I ask, how did they respond to that? Receptive? Like the
so
team?
yeah, so we came in like with our birth plan, like we printed it like 7 times, like it was all over
Same.
the room. Yeah, and my husband's job was to be like the guardian of like the labor. Like, don't talk to her, don't look at her, don't touch her. Like, if you need something, ask me and I'll ask her.
Oh my
And
God,
at the
guardian of
time,
labor. I
yeah,
love it.
at the time it was also like the COVID restrictions, so my doula wasn't there. So really, like what my husband's job was to like just protect the space, which I think is really important. But I was really lucky. My birthing team was amazing and so respectful to my plan. My nurse was like an angel. And I had like the same nurse throughout the whole thing, which was awesome.
Because it was so
Um,
fast. It was 7 hours.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, in the hospital at that time too, they weren't allowed to use tubs. So I was in and out of the shower a lot. And by the time I got into transition, I remember like my legs being so sore because I was just walking the whole time. Like I was
Mhm.
walking, I was squatting, I was swaying.
So that means you
Um,
weren't attached to, well, I guess, fetal monitoring.
no, I was not attached to any fetal monitoring, which was on my birth plan.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you didn't have an epidural. So what people don't understand is like once they get the epidural and then they have the fetal monitoring attached, you really cannot move. Like
No.
you are trapped to the bed. So,
Yeah.
I bet you just having the freedom to walk around and move made your labor progress that much faster.
See, but I
For
didn't even know you
sure.
had the option to be able to say no to those kind of things.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
also,
exactly. And
both us in our situations, we both tested positive for group strep B. Did you?
yes, I did.
No way.
Yeah, I did. So when I got to the hospital, I had 1 round of antibiotics. And because my labor was so quick, I don't think I got another one that I
So they
remember.
just gave it to you and they let you go,
Yeah.
which is another option people don't know they can do.
I had no idea.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you could turn down the antibiotics
Also,
completely.
yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know too much about it the first time around. And I think antibiotics is a great option for people if they're nervous about it. But it's important to know too, like statistically, what the risks of the baby being infected are.
Mhm.
It's really quite low. So, yeah, I learned everything this time on evidence-based birthing. I think that's what it's called.
Yes.
It's a really good website, and everything is like based on evidence and studies. So it's not just like natural people versus doctors. It's really based on evidence.
They have a great podcast too.
Oh, they do? Okay, I didn't even know
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah. I listen.
yeah, so I did get antibiotics, but I wasn't like attached to anything after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it so important to do your homework and to understand, what GBS is and what the statistics are. Like you said, so you did your homework. You realized that the stats and the chances of it affecting your baby are so low.
Yeah.
No, you ended up doing it. Someone can look at it and say, yeah, I don't really know. And the side effects of the antibiotics are worse than, it's just having informed consent, which is what you say no one even knows about.
No, but I feel like you both have the support of a doula. So you had another person with who was like supporting you and informing you through these decisions. Like I didn't have that. So like in the back of my mind, there's that like fear, right? Because
it's scary for sure.
The doctor's not going to give you the option.
Yeah, exactly.
It's go time. And my last question before you do labor is you're walking around doing all your techniques. This is from the doula because we recently learned about hypnobirthing as well. Yeah. Any sort of hypnobirthing on your end?
I didn't do any kind of hypnobirthing or learn about it.
Okay.
I've heard like I've heard mixed things. Like some people are like, it didn't do anything for me, and some people like swear by it. Right. I didn't do any of that. I was just kind of like more active. Like, I don't know, it kind of just takes over you in labor. You can't really help what you're doing, I find, and for me, like in both labors, I was just like very active and moving a lot. So yeah, it would have been hard to be like strapped down.
Just understanding you have the right to say yes or no to literally everything in the hospital.
Yes.
And having your guardian of labor with you.
Yes.
You're so lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, so now with Banks, how would you compare?
In the birthing center, the experience is incredible. It's just like it's such a nice space. It's a lot more peaceful than a hospital. It's not like the birth workers are just like wearing normal clothes. No one's like in scrubs and masks, and it feels like a less sterile environment, and it's quite homey. Like that's what they try to do at the birthing center, make it feel homey. I was also the only person giving birth there, so like I got to walk around the whole place and like use all their things, and it was at night, so like no one was even there for appointments or there working other than like my birth team. So yeah, it was really nice. I also had the room with the tub. Nice. So when I went into transition, I went into the tub, but surprisingly I didn't like it like at all. Like I was in there for like, I think because my transition was quick. I literally was in transition for like 20 minutes. So I was in the tub for like pretty much the whole time. And I was like, get me out of here. Like by the end, like there was something about like floating that I wanted to feel more grounded. So yeah, so the second I got out of the tub, I went on the bed on my hands and knees actually. And she came out in 2 pushes. So she was like ready to go.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. And at the birthing center, like you're allowed to bring food. I think they even make you food or they offer you, right?
Yeah. So my husband was like going across the street. There's like this little dépanneur across the street, and he was like getting snacks and walking around, and then he ordered Uber Eats. So like you're pretty much free to come and go, and like even families allowed to come visit and come see you. It's like not a huge room, so you don't want a ton of people, but my mom was there, which was really nice, and my husband was kind of like in and out. My doula was also at my second birth, which made a huge difference, and like kind of let my husband just like relax until it was go time. I think for like a lot of men, it's very hard to like watch their wives in labor, like like with the epidural or not. They just don't know what to do, you know what I mean? So
and sometimes it stresses the women out too when the husband's like pacing or if he faints or
yeah. Oh my god, yeah, you don't want that. So honestly, like birth was made for like women supporting, women doing it, like everything. So the doula was really nice as like for my husband, and also for me, obviously, that like she was doing all the positions with me and the poses and the counter pressure, and like it was amazing.
Yeah, they say the midwife is there for the baby and the doula is there for the mama. the mama support.
So like another thing, and it's so funny because my husband described it like this, is that the birthing center birth was kind of like a DIY birth, like do it yourself birth. Because like the midwife really doesn't get involved unless like something's going on or you ask for something. But again, in this birth, like I think I did one cervical exam when I got there just to see after 18 hours of labor, like how progressed I was.
And how
and I was at like 3.5. So it wasn't that encouraging, but the whole thing happened in 3 hours after that. So like, you know, it means nothing really. It could happen like this.
And at the birthing center, they also have like different options. So they have the pool, they have like the birthing chair, the bed. Am I missing something?
Yeah.
I feel like there's another.
I had the thing like hanging from the ceiling. Yeah. Like I was like on the bed on my knees and like the thing hanging from the ceiling, which is kind of nice. Like it just lets your weight kind of, you know, be free. So
with Joe, did you deliver lying on your back?
I was kind of on my back, kind of side lying, but it worked. Like it's what I like. I was so, my legs were so dead that at first I was trying to, like I was on my knees with like leaning against the bed. And then I just had to lie down. And with Joe, I pushed for 26 minutes. So all to say, like sometimes lying on your back or side like does work. For me, with Joe, it really did. And Joe was like a much easier birth than Banks, which is funny because I think hers was just so fast and intense that it was way more painful. Yeah, so my birth with Joe was much less intense than with Banks because the whole thing happened from like 3.5, 4 centimeters to like birth in 3 hours, you know? So they say like the faster it is, the more intensity you feel. Like I don't want to use the word pain because I don't want to scare anyone. Like I also don't want to sugarcoat it. It's very intense giving birth like without an epidural. But yeah, it's funny because hers was like, I would say like worse, even though it was faster.
If I'm not mistaken, your water didn't break. So she was like descending full.
Yes.
In the full sack.
That was crazy. So my midwives and the doula were like, oh my God, she's going to be born on call. And I was like, what the hell? So when I was in the bath at one point, the midwife was like, you could go and pop your own water. And I was like, what? Like, I was just like, I was in transition. I was like screaming, like there was so much going on. And she's like, you could just stick your fingers in there and pop your water. And I was like, what? No.
DIY.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Do it yourself. And like looking back now, I kind of wish I had asked her to pop it because I think it would have like relieved, like it would have been a bit less painful because like when they're born with the sac, like it just takes up more space. So it's a little more painful because there's a lot more space being taken up. And yeah, like right when her head came out is when the sac popped. So it was almost an on-call birth, but yeah.
And what does that mean? What is an on-call?
When the baby's born in the sac, the whole with the amniotic fluid.
On-call? It's like French
Yeah,
on-call?
they call it that. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's a French word, yeah.
I wonder if there's any like benefits or, you know, something like...
I have no idea. I've seen like C-section babies coming out like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with a C-section, like they break the water before they take the baby out or sometimes they take it out. I'm not sure, but I think it's, yeah, I don't know. In hindsight, like you should probably break your water instead of an on-call birth because it's a lot.
So afterwards, how long did you stay at the birthing center after birth?
Oh my God, it was crazy. I literally like gave birth. They bring you this beautiful fruit platter, which was like literally heaven. It's so nice at the birthing center. Like Ali was saying before, like they'll make you meals and they have a whole menu, but like right after you give birth, they bring out this gorgeous fruit platter. And I literally like devoured it with like my baby on me, like still with like all the stuff on her. Like no one had been rubbing her. Yeah, like everything. And like my husband like feeding me fruit from this fruit platter. I also had no tearing, so like everything was all good down there. And then I got up, took a shower, and left. It was literally like an hour and a half after I gave birth.
And I know this was your second birth, but had this been your
Mm-hmm.
first birth, you would have been able to get up and leave as well?
Yeah, like they don't have like at a hospital where you have to stay 24 hours or you have to sign a waiver if you don't. Like they literally just want to know like if you have no complications, no bleeding, no tearing, then yeah, it's pretty much what you're comfortable with. Like they were like, "Are you sure you don't want to stay? Like we'll take care of you, we'll feed you." And I was like, "No, I want to go to my own bed, you know?" So
Yeah.
if you are a first time mama giving birth there, like maybe you would want to stay there because they'll show you how to breastfeed, they'll give you food, they'll help you like change everything down there. I think if it was my first time, I probably would have stayed. And it's way nicer than in a hospital. It's not like all the beeping and the bright lights and a nurse waking you up every hour. It would have been like a really nice experience still, but because it was my second, I just didn't need the help, you know?
I'm just envisioning like fruits being served to her, and then we got these like trays of like, you know, and they unveil it, and you're like,
Like prison trays.
you're like, yeah.
You're like, what kind of beans did this come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Forcing it down just to have some sort of food in your system.
Yeah, exactly. I think like most women's first meal after they give birth like is something like they go get. Like it's not like the hospital food, you know?
What was your first?
I can't remember, honestly.
I remember my husband went and got me Olympico coffee. I was like really craving like a really good coffee.
I wanted coffee too.
Just
yeah.
a coffee.
No, and I think I had a sandwich from somewhere. I don't remember where.
Well, there was nothing around St. Mary's. It was like
No, and it was COVID too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I think I had prison food.
Really?
Or
That's
I
so
had like
funny.
a Cliff Bar or something we brought, like sour candies. I don't know. I was just like, give me sugar.
Oh yeah, it's true. And my first birth at the hospital, like I had a whole suitcase of snacks because my husband at the time wasn't allowed to come and go because of the COVID rules. So like
Yeah.
it's like once you're in there, like you have to stay there or you have to leave. So we had like so many snacks.
You stayed at the hospital for how long with Joe?
So I gave birth to him at 7:59 and then we stayed overnight and in the morning actually we had to sign that waiver to leave because the doctor hadn't been back to see me, but they missed me on their last shift. So I was like, well, like forget it. I'm not going to sit here and wait for the doctor. Like I had also no complications or tearing or anything, so I was good to go, but they did make me sign a waiver. And that was like the worst part, the overnight stay. It was like,
I know, it was dreadful.
yeah. Yeah.
Did they do the like the foot prick test and stuff for Joe at the hospital?
Yes. Yeah, at the hospital. Or well, I think the CLSC nurse did it like a few days later. They come to do a visit.
To me, that was like the most traumatic experience was when they came in and they pricked Isabel's foot and she was just crying like her lungs out, and I was crying because my baby's crying and everyone's crying, and I was just like, could this not wait, you know? And I didn't know it was an option that you can, number one, say no, or number two, delay it, you know? And with Banks, did you do it, or no, you just went home?
We did it with well, no, so we didn't do it at the birthing center because we just like left so quickly. But the next day, the midwife came to my house in the morning to see me. So that was such a nice option that she was like, you could stay here and we'll do like your 1 day check here in the morning and then you go home, or we'll come see you at your house. So I was like, obviously, like I want to go home and come see me at the house. So she came the next morning to like see how's your latch, how's she feeding. And actually it wasn't even that visit that they did the prick. They did it the next day because they came the next day as well. So that was really nice. And thankfully she didn't cry at all during the thing. They let me like breastfeed her while they were doing it. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Definitely
two completely different experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you have a third, what are you doing?
Oh my God, I'm definitely not having a third. I have my boy and my girl. And after that last labor, like, I think I said it with my first two, but the second she came out, the first thing I said is, I'm never fucking doing this again.
But I feel like that happens, and then like a couple of months pass, a year passes, and then you're like,
Your brain like blocks it out, I think.
right?
Yeah. But one thing I definitely remember with my second, like knowing I was going to do it again without an epidural, the first time is kind of like ignorance is bliss. And you like, I was so confident in my first birth because like I did my classes with my doula. I was so educated. I wasn't scared at all because like the more you learn about birth and natural birth, like the less fearful you'll be of the experience, which is like why working with a doula is the most important thing. Um, and like I had no clue what was coming, so it was like
No one does.
no, exactly. So it was really good going into it with that mindset instead of like being nervous and fearful. But the second time around, not that I was fearful, but it was more like, oh shit, like this is gonna be really hard. Like, after doing it the first time, you know it's coming. So you're a bit more like you just know it's going to be hard versus the first time being like, oh, I've seen videos of some women like breathing their babies out and like doing all the techniques and it's not going to be that bad, and then it happens and it's really intense and crazy, and then you're like, oh, I have to do this again.
But how
So
good did you feel after? I mean, there's such a
oh
great benefit of not being medicated during your labor.
yeah, like
Number one, you can literally stand up and go home.
yeah,
And you
literally,
forget
like
the
I
pain.
yeah, honestly, like the most amazing thing about giving birth naturally and why I think it's so worth it is the second that baby comes out of you, like the pain is gone. It's like, it's really crazy. It's like, even though it's the most intense and crazy experience your body could go through, like the second your baby is out and in your arms, it's like over. And the relief, like that feeling is so worth it. So yeah, that's what I kind of tell moms when they want to do it naturally and they're like, it's gonna hurt. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's crazy, but like there's nothing like that feeling and it's so worth it. And like, look, women do it over and over again. I did it twice and
Mm-hmm.
anyone could do it. They just have to want to do it.
You are living proof.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's any advice for anyone who's contemplating how they want to go about their birth after both of your experience.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think the number one thing and the biggest problem is that pregnant women show up at the hospital to give birth and have no idea what's going to happen to them. Like they don't even know like actual birth, like the stages of birth and what happens in your body physically and how incredible it is what's happening in dilation. And so to be educated and like do birthing classes or hire a doula or whatever it is, like every woman, it should be mandatory, honestly, to have to do like birthing classes to learn
Mhm.
about what's going on, because too many women just go in and show up at the hospital and have no idea like what's going to happen or what their body's doing. So I think a lot more women would be more confident about doing it naturally if they were more educated about it, because the more you know, like the less fearful you'll be. And so it shouldn't be like a fearful, scary medical experience. It's
Mhm.
it's a really natural thing. People have been doing it since the beginning of time, and I think there's just a lot of fear around it because people don't understand it.
That was so well
So
said.
So well said. Yeah.
Jessica, we want to thank you
Yeah.
for being so open and raw with us today and just sharing
yeah,
both
of
of your
course.
journeys with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you
And
guys for having me.
yeah. And before we wrap up, we like to ask our guests 2 questions.
Number one, what is your favorite go-to baby product?
Oh my God, like that's a hard question. Like for like
Your
what stage?
personal
Like
favorite. Let's say baby, under one.
yeah, under one.
As she's looking at the pacifier and the
I
bouncer.
Yeah, I know.
that's exactly what I just had in my head.
I'm
That's exactly what was in my head.
my first baby didn't use it, but seriously, this time around, the pacifier for sure. And I guess maybe with Joe, like with teething, because he was teething a lot before one, like um those little things that you could put frozen fruit in and they chew on. And like even
Mm,
just to give as a snack, like Joe at like from 6 months to like even past 1 years old, like always had like a little frozen fruit with that chewy thing. So I
love
think
it.
for him that, and for her a pacifier.
And what is your favorite mama product that you could not live without?
I think in the first year, If you're breastfeeding, like a really good nursing bra and those nursing pads. Like, I don't know, I'm a leaker, so like literally like the first year of Joe's life, I was like living in pads. So that's pretty much like what I used. And
Love
like
it.
so many different nursing bras. I've tried all of them.
Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, actually, I get them on Amazon. I think the company's like Bravado
Oh,
or
yes, I
Bravo.
ordered from them.
Yeah, and like
Bravado.
they're not like very sexy, or like I have different ones if I'm wearing them under something like tighter, but they're so comfortable and like easy to just like whip out. So
I love
yeah.
it.
Beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
this was another real and raw conversation.
See you next time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, I hope that